Okay, so something that I've been thinking about for a while is why hasn't anyone tried George Bush as a war criminal? Or at least, like, he's been in violation of several human rights. Um, yeah. Like, first of all, the Iraq invasion, the big one, was illegal. And I'm sure everybody knows that by now. Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. If they did, then why was Saddam Hussein, or not Saddam Hussein, Bin Laden in Pakistan all this time? I honestly don't believe that George Bush didn't know where Bin Laden was, seeing that he has ties with the Bin Laden family. Like, no. It just, there's a whole bunch of things that don't make sense to me. And then they say, "Oh, we're going there. It's an oppressive government. Da 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 da. They do this to women and people." Yeah, they do that. But there was a genocide going on in Sudan for the past 20 years. You didn't care about that. So obviously there's some other motive behind this. Not just that, Saudi Arabia, which is one of the U.S.'s biggest, um, I wouldn't say trading partners, but they rely on Saudi Arabia highly for oil. They have an oppressive government. I mean, women aren't even allowed to drive. There's public executions. Uh, I don't know. And the thing that made me so mad when they were going into Iraq was the amount of American support. Like, support our troops, or come on, Al Qaeda did this to us. It's revenge. We're trying to defend ourselves. Da 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 da. And it's like, yeah, Al Qaeda, the Taliban, whoever, they did that to you, not Iraq, not Iraq. And then Saddam Hussein is executed for being, what is it, war criminal and violation of human rights, which is true. He was a bad guy. I'm not saying he was the greatest or some kind of martyr, but come on. There there were so many other things going on in the world that the US could have invested their time and energy in for moral reasons. If that's what the invasion in Iraq was supposed to be. And not to mention all the propaganda they started spewing. I mean, that big poster saying mission complete, like, they were feeding us lies the entire time this war was going on. I am so glad Canada didn't go into Iraq, and I thank you, French Canadians. I thank you, Quebec, for that. But now, Quebec. The US, also under George Bush, funded a coup, or they call an ouster because they said Aristide formally resigned or left willingly, which is not true, which is what he says. Aristide, he was the democratically elected president of Haiti. I think they're first, even. But because he had some, I guess you could say, extreme demands, the US wasn't having it, Canada wasn't having it, and France wasn't having it. I think France didn't want it primarily because France had colonized Haiti, and yeah, the way Haiti got independence was from this big slave revolt. Doesn't that just, like, inspire you, just make you so happy that the slaves all got together, they some rebellion, they gained independence, and you know what France did? They made Haiti pay them after that. Some ridiculous amount. Like, where do you expect slaves to get that kind of money? So Aristide was like, yeah, you're gonna give us that money back because, first of all, it was taken under false pretenses. And yeah, I guess I guess the rest of North America wasn't having that. I think Canada is mainly because we have French connections. That could be why. I still don't understand Canada's motives for their involvement in the Aristide ouster. But the U.S., I think it's because they don't want to pay the African Americans that are living there. Because if you have to pay one group reparations, you gotta pay them too. So I think that's why the U.S. was highly involved in that ouster. I mean, the planes that took him away to exile in South Africa were U.S. planes with U.S. officials. And it's not the first time. Yeah, I think he was ousted twice. Twice by Americans. I think Clinton was the one who put him back in, or helped him get back in. But now America's all like, you can go back to Haiti just after the elections. You can't participate in government. And America claims to be like, oh, we want to spread democracy everywhere. What I feel America is trying to say is, we want to spread capitalism. Capitalism, neoliberalism, or, you know what, full-blown imperialism. So long as you do what we say, we don't care. I mean, why else do they allow Saudi Arabia to govern the way it does? Or are there places like that? Actually, now that I think about it, I think the main reason the U.S. never went into Sudan is probably because North Sudan now, I guess you could say, because it's been split up, has a lot of Arab or Islamic allies. I don't think they want to piss them off even more. But, again, another reason why George Bush should be tried as a war criminal. The George Bush government funded the coup in Venezuela. Why? Why? I mean, have you watched the Revolution Will Not Be Televised? I am so glad that I took this sociology class because it's just so much information. Things I did not know that were going on in my lifetime that these governments were doing, and I don't think a lot of people were aware. The United States government funded a coup d'etat against Hugo Chavez. And I see Hugo Chavez, and I'm like, why couldn't we have a leader like that here? Okay? First of all, he wanted to nationalize Venezuela's oil. He wanted to redistribute the wealth. I mean, he essentially was the people's president, or the poor people's president. But not just that, he allowed one-on-one talking with the public. He had his own TV show where you could call in and talk to the president. And I know that sounds corny, but it actually... He was just so charismatic, talking to people on the streets. The people loved him. You could see the people loved him. But nope, the U.S., oh, Hugo Chavez is oppressive, military dictator, whatever propaganda they could find. Not just that, okay, so the coup happens. They're not even shy to put in the head of an oil company as the acting president. Like, right there, I think that sums up the whole thing. I think that it clearly does. I mean, U.S. wants cheaper oil. Let's put in the leader of an oil company who was pro the old world order. I don't know. Like, when you look into the history, the U.S. has an ugly history. And while we're charging George Bush of being a war criminal, we should charge the president who was in power during September 11th, 1973. Okay? I watched that video and I just started crying in class because do you know what they did? I mean, we were sitting here crying about, like, a couple, like, what is it? How many people died on the plane? Like 2,000? I mean, this is going to sound really insensitive, but at least those people died relatively quickly. Well, no. Now that I think about it, when the buildings came down too, there was people who died in the buildings. I feel bad. Okay. But what I'm saying is, what happened in Chile was a lot worse because that was a military attack funded by the US. Do you know what they did to people? They executed and tortured people in front of their friends, family, loved ones, children. They did not care. Do you know what they did to women? They raped them. The one guy was even saying that they did like these weird bestiality things where they were sticking like rats in women's vaginas. Like, what kind of what like who does that? Who does that? All because you did not like their president, Salvador Allende, and you had him killed. You had him killed. Why? Why? Because the people democratically elected him. And you say you're pro-democracy. Please, America, stop lying to the people. Just say that you're pro-capitalism. You're pro-capitalism. You're pro-neoliberalism. You want everybody to just bend over and take it. Just say that. Don't lie to the people. Don't lie to your citizens. Because me personally, if I'm an American citizen, I do not want my government acting this way on my behalf. Okay? That's why a lot of people don't like Americans. Why? Because of how America interacts with the rest of the world. So, and not just that. Do you know what the Americans did in Iran? I mean, there's so many things America has done that I don't think the people know about. And the first three that I told you about were all recently. They were all done under that 8-year term with George Bush. So, if there's some petitions or something circulating around about charging George Bush as a war criminal, sign them. Sign them. And if I didn't do enough to convince you, go out there. There's so many videos here on YouTube about what's been going on. I will post links in the description. You should watch them. You should watch them because honestly, you should. Just so you know your history, just so you know who is representing you and why it's important to vote and understand your government and hold your government accountable. Yes. If you have any questions, comments, I may or may not be able to answer them, but I will find somebody who can.